بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So inshallah, let's continue with the next lesson for Ulum al-Quran, and we want to look at the compilation of the Quran. The compilation of the Quran. Good. So some points we want to just talk about. So the compilation of the Quran, we have to understand two key words here so that we don't get mixed up. So one is kutibat, which means written. And the other is duwinat. Which means compiled. Between two covers. Which means bound, yeah? The book is bound. بين الدفتين. بين الدفتين. So kutibat is something is written, and duwinat is something is then compiled in, like this book is compiled. There is page 1 and there is last page is page 424, and it is in order, it is bound, and it is all compiled and in one book now. Yes, and you can't mix up the pages because they're all doing it. Yeah, bound. So what we need to know is that the Quran was written, kutibat, during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, written, and even before the fact that it was written, it was memorized. It had already been memorized during the life of the Prophet ﷺ by, we will see, many companions. But it was immediately after the passing away of the Prophet ﷺ that the duwinat, the compilation and the binding of the Quran was a matter of urgency because the Prophet ﷺ passed away. Yeah? So a bit of context about what was happening in terms of the people in the time of the Prophet when he was sent as a messenger. There is a key term called ummiyin, which essentially means people who do not know how to read and write. Yeah. So Allah Ta'ala, He mentions this in the Quran many times. The Prophet ﷺ, he himself, he has been referred to as Ummi. Sorry, wrong ayah. 62. Allah, He has mentioned, because the Prophet ﷺ, he had not learnt how to read and write in his life. هو الذي بعث في سورة الجمعة آية 2 هو الذي بعث في الأميين أميين. It is He, Allah, who has sent amongst the unlettered people, it says in brackets, the Arabs, Ummiyin, Rasulam minhum, a messenger from amongst them. So the people who are broadly Ummiyun, there are very few people. There are approximately, says, 17 people who knew how to read and write in Makkah at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and the revelation has started. We know that there were poets and orators, and but they were very far and few, yeah, very few. And when they were, they used to have this annual fair of Ukaz, and there they would compete, and then the winner would, his poetry or his kalam, whatever, it would then be exhibited on the door of the Kaaba to show that this person, he is the literary and he is the poet of the year, if you like, something like that. So the tradition at the time of learning and conveying message and learning and conveying knowledge and learning and conveying culture, history was oral tradition. Yes. So they were very astute, they were very sharp, they were a community of oral tradition because they didn't know how to read and write. So their sense of memorization was very, very sharp. And that's why they would then be able to, because any society needs a means of transferring information and culture from a generation to a generation. So this was the situation at the time. Some other places about this where the word ummi has been mentioned, so that we have an idea. So this Surah Al-A'raf 157 and then 158. الذين يتبعون الرسول النبي الأمي. So those who follow the messenger, the unlettered prophet, al-ummi. Yeah. And again here it is mentioned in the end of this ayah, قل يا أيها الناس إني رسول الله إليكم جميعا الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض لا إله إلا هو يحيي ويميت فآمنوا بالله ورسوله النبي الأمي. Again, it has been mentioned, the Prophet, he is unlettered. He did not go to school to learn to read and write. So this is one of the aspects of the miraculous nature of the Quran as well. Because he himself was not able to read or write. But then how can he bring a book like this? Anyway, that we will see in the miraculous nature of the Quran. So this is the situation at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It then moves on to tell us about when do we have reports of the Quran being written in Mecca. So the opinion of the author is that it seems like in the beginning, for the first 2-3 years, because the surahs, you know that the Quran started to be revealed and then there was a gap. There was a gap of approximately 2 years until anything was revealed. So whatever was revealed until that, before that gap, it had been memorized by the Prophet, of course, anyway, because that is Allah Ta'ala's promise to the Prophet that he will preserve the Quran. Yeah, you remember we mentioned this. This has been mentioned in Surah Al-Nahl, Ra'd, which is before Nahl. 15, Surah 15. Very famous, you know it. Hijr. And here, as you mentioned, Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidun. Yeah, we know that. Yeah, this is the key ayah regarding this. And then, as you said, Surah Al-Qiyamah. What was said in Surah Al-Qiyamah? You remember about the preservation of the Quran? Anything you remember?
They do not rush to memorize this.
Very good. Excellent. لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به. Prophet is being told by Allah Ta'ala, do not rush to try and memorize this Quran while Jibreel is reciting it to you. Inna alayna jam'ahu wa Quran. Allah is saying it's up, we will take care of it. We will collect it and we will show you how to recite it. So when we have shown you how to recite it, follow it And then ثم إن علينا بيانا. And then also it is our responsibility. You don't have to worry that how you will understand and explain the Quran. So its tafsir will be given by Allah to the Prophet. He will guide him. And so his whole life is essentially the tafsir of the Quran. Prophet his whole life. So it is a living book. It lived in the life and it still lives in the lives of people. So this is one thing that we know for sure from the Quran itself. So we have to be very clear about these things with reference. Because there are many people, they try to mix up things. And they bring us awkward things. But you will, inshallah, be very clear about certain things. And you will be able to see where is this person coming from? Where is this accusation coming from? And how has the Quran dealt with it? And so we just essentially then use the Quran to talk to these people, because the Quran protects itself. Okay, so there is then a mention about the 6th year of Nabawi, in which we find the incident of the conversion of Umar radiallahu anhu, the famous incident when he left with his sword to assassinate the Prophet ﷺ, because this man, according to him at that time, Umar, this man, he is dividing our community, our society. He is putting the father against the son and the son against the father and the brothers against brothers, etc. So he is causing the disintegration. So I will stop this man now from the damage he's doing. And so he comes to he's on his way when he is told by somebody that, when he asked, where are you going, Umar? He said, this is where I'm going to end this. And this man says that you should go and look at your own household first. What is happening there? So then Umar, he goes to his sister's house. And he finds that she is reciting Quran from a scripture written. And these are the ayat of Surah Taha. So when they hide it, his sister and brother-in-law, they hide it, but then he finds it and he becomes violent and he beats them both up. But then when he calms down, he sees the resolve in his sister, especially, and the courage that she shows. And therefore he says, then look, show me, what is this? And then she says, no, you cannot touch it, you are impure. So he has to go and take a bath and come back. And then he recites the ayat of Surah Taha. And then those ayat, as he recites, he changes. Umar changes from enemy to the best friend. So this is indication that the Mus'haf or Quran was being written, because there are reports of people. This is one famous example of people having, they call it parchment, because it wasn't a full book, of course, of the Quran. Okay, it then talks about, yes, another means of preservation of the Quran was the memorization I mentioned. So there are narrations about the Prophet ﷺ standing up, and I think Abdullah ibn Abbas was with him, or Abdullah ibn Masud, one of them. And then he's recited Surah Al-Baqarah, and then Surah Al-Imran, and then Surah Al-Nisa in one rak'ah. And the companion, he said, I couldn't stand with him anymore, so I had to leave. So this shows us that the Quran was memorized and it was recited. And the other aspect of that is that the Prophet ﷺ had been told in the beginning in Surah Al-Muzammil and Al-Muddathir that you recite part of the Quran, half of it that you have, or a third of it, and then later whatever is easy for the believers. So the Quran was being recited by the Prophet ﷺ in his own personal prayers. And the believers, they had prayer. It wasn't 5 times a day yet. They had prayer. They would pray. And they would pray from memory. Yeah. So this is another indication of its preservation. Then it talks about the Prophet ﷺ, he was very anxious, as it says in the ayah, La tuharrik bihi lisanaka. He was also he felt responsible because this is qawlan thaqila. Qawlan thaqila is, this word is a heavy burden on you now, responsibility. So he would make sure that anybody who would enter into Islam, he would send then the people of Quran to those people to teach them. So this shows what? This shows that they either had memorized it or they had written it to be able to communicate that. So these, you see all these things we're looking at, they go to show that there was something, there was a central place either in their memory or it had been written where they were getting all this information about the Quran itself. It talks about Maktoum and Musab ibn Umair going to Medina. This is why the Prophet is in Makkah and there is interest in Medina. And then after coming to Medina, he then sends people outside back to Makkah. Mu'adh ibn Jabal is an example. He also went to Yemen to teach the Quran. Then we find in the 4th year of Hijri, there are 70 Hufadh, 70 of the companions, Hufadh, who are tricked into by the mushrikeen, etc., an ambush, and they are killed, they're shaheed. So this is showing that this community of Muslims, there are people who are known to be Hufaz of the Quran that has been revealed so far. So you get it, the whole community is active in learning and memorizing and teaching the Quran. Okay. During the life of the Prophet ﷺ, you will read in the book, inshallah, the Prophet ﷺ had, initially, when the Quran is being revealed, the Prophet ﷺ, he had scribes, yeah, people who would write the Quran, but he instructed them, write only the Quran from me, which means do not write work from me. Do not write hadith from me yet. Okay? Because he was training the companions to be able to distinguish between the Quran and hadith. Yeah? And now if you read Quran and we read hadith, you can say, no, this is Quran, this is not Quran, this is hadith. Yeah? Because of the style of it. So from the beginning, the Prophet ﷺ, he had scribes, he had the katibin of wahi, the people who would write. There are, of course, the 4 khulafa, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali Ridwanullah Ajma'in, who are, of course, the 4 foremost. Then you have people like Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman, Abdullah ibn Masud, Abdullah ibn Amr, Abdullah ibn Abbas, of course you'd expect, Ubay ibn Ka'ab, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, and Zayd ibn Thabit, Ridwanullah Ajma'in. Zayd ibn Thabit, he will play a key role in the compilation. Yeah, we will see that inshallah. Zayd ibn Thabit. So the Prophet ﷺ, in response to this ayah 495, so this ayah revealed لا يستوي القائدون من المؤمنين غير أولي الضرر والمجاهدون في سبيل الله بأموالهم وأنفسهم فضل الله المجاهدين بأموالهم وأنفسهم على القائدين درجة وكلا وعد الله الحسنى وفضل الله المجاهدين على القائدين أجرا عظيما. When this ayah is revealed, the Prophet he calls Zayd ibn Thabit and he says that you write the Quran, meaning Mujahiduna fi sabilillah. So there is the mujahid who is on the battlefield, yes, but there is the mujahid who will preserve the deen, to write the Quran. Yeah, so Zayd ibn Thabit, even in the life of the Prophet, he has been given this role, and it is not surprising that when the Prophet passes away, then Abu Bakr has this, Umar has this strong urge, yeah, that the Quran must be written now, duwinat, and he urges Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Abu Bakr, he's initially uncomfortable, but then he says, Allah Ta'ala, he opened up my heart to this, that yes, what you are saying, Umar, is right. And then he appoints Zayd ibn Thabit to be the head of this committee of Sahaba. And we will look at that whole process, inshallah. So Zayd ibn Thabit, he is a key person in this writing in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and as well after in the compilation. So Kutibat and Duwinat, he has the honor of both of these. And he mentions roughly there were 24 scribes from the documents that we can rely on, 24 scribes who would write the Quran. The Quran was written on different materials, cloth, the big camel bones, yeah, on skin, leather skin, etc., etc., because paper was not obviously readily available. And also these people, as we mentioned, very few could read and write anyway. But these were the people who were able to read and write. Okay. The other point mentioned here is there are reports of the Sahaba having their personal copies of their mushaf, their own mushaf, that they would read from. These mushaf, of course, they were not like the mushaf we have, from starting from Al-Fatiha to Al-Nas. Yeah? They had whatever they had in it. But they had most of the Quran that had been revealed with them. So this is just to know that this was something that was happening during the Prophet ﷺ, and it was known, and it was by many Sahaba, 15 given here, including Aisha radiallahu anha as well. And then the Prophet ﷺ, it is narrated that that Jibreel alayhi salam would come to him in every Ramadan to get the Prophet to read the Quran to him, and then he would read it back to him. Yeah? So that as if it's dawrah, like the Hufaz they do in Ramadan, they have to go through it over again. Yeah? And in the last year of the Prophet's life, Jibreel alayhi salam did this twice. Upon which the Prophet said, it seems like my ajal, my lifetime span is now near. My deadline is here, I think, because he's doing it twice. Yeah, so this has been narrated. And this is one of the reasons why we, as an ummah, we emphasize the Taraweeh and its the dawrah of the Quran in Ramadan. Although it is not fard, yeah, it is not fard to do it, to even read Taraweeh, yeah, and it is not fard, but Allah Ta'ala, He has indicated, it seems, Wallahu Alam, very heavily and strongly when He mentions Shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran. Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed. And the Prophet ﷺ, he has mentioned that Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So as we were just to finish off then, inshallah. So we mentioned the Prophet ﷺ receiving Jibreel alayhi salam and then going over the whole Quran twice in the last Ramadan. Yeah? And then we find, he mentions then, why was the Quran not then compiled during the life of the Prophet? We'll take
I
that.
think he wants to.
Yeah, we'll take that. Found during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, any ideas? You can add, no problem. Anyway, the question was, we're studying part of the science of the Quran, the compilation of the Quran.
Yeah.
So the question is, why wasn't the Quran compiled, which means in the form of a book, during the life of the Prophet? Why did it have to wait until afterwards? That's
Because at the beginning it was passed heart to heart. And those were the Sahabas who knew the Quran by heart. But then later on in time, as there was a war, particularly after I think about a lot of the Sahabis who were Hafiz, who were Shaheed martyred, I think maybe the next one. So Umar took it on himself to collect everything that was available to compile the Quran in the form that's in at the moment.
But why wasn't it? That's correct, the history is right. What's the simple explanation?
It's because the Quran being good over time. It's getting good gradually, so you can't really compare it.
Yes, it is still being revealed in the life of the Prophet. Not even the Prophet knows when it will stop. He doesn't know. Yeah? So you can't have a compiled book which is not finished. That's one. Anything else? Which is the most obvious and most strong, you say, the lead for this. Anything else? There is also we haven't studied this yet, abrogation. Nasikh and Mansukh, we'll see that later. The Quran as it is being revealed, and this is all really part of the fact that Quran is still being revealed, essentially. Yeah? There are ayats that have been sent that will later on be abrogated. And when we study abrogation, there are types of abrogation. One is abrogation of the actual ayah is removed. And the other abrogation is the ayah remains, but its ruling is removed. A very famous ayah regarding something that has been abrogated in its actuality, the text is not in the Quran, but it's been abrogated. Anybody know which ayah that is? About what?
Satanic verses. Or is that wrong?
No. There's no such thing as satanic. Those said
No,
that
no,
it's
that's
Satan's.
the topic.
That is Satan's words. The ayat about the punishment for the married zina, zani, who are married, is to stone them, rajam, stoning to death of the married man or woman. This was an ayah in the Quran, yes, but it was then nasikh mansukh, abrogated, not in its ruling, but the text. Prophet was told by Allah Ta'ala, this is not part of Quran anymore, but the ruling remains. Because the Prophet he himself, he gave this punishment to at least two incidents, at least we know that. So Nasikh and Mansukh is still in progress, so then how, we don't know. Yes, which ayah will be abrogated, which one won't, we don't know. So as the brother mentioned also, it is after the life of the Prophet ﷺ that we will look at that in detail anyway, that Abu Bakr is convinced by Umar radiallahu anhu. And then Abu Bakr, he appoints Zayd ibn Thabit as the head of this committee of duwinat. Duwinat, which means what? We mentioned today.
Compile.
Actual compiling and bound to bind the Quran. Yeah, from beginning to the end in the order in which we have it, as instructed by the Prophet ﷺ. Yes. Khair. So, inshallah, these are the main points for today. What we will. Yes, please, Bismillah.
It's very